I admittedly was never on the OnePlus bandwagon when they were first getting started. My first OnePlus device was a OnePlus 2, which I frankly wasn't really impressed with, and I had preferred my LG G4 at the time. But as they got more and more mature, I had more and more appreciation for the scrappy startup that was OnePlus. That story has seemed to change over recent years, and they've really stabilized and become more of a similar company to other phone manufacturers on the market. That's come with higher pricing and less enthusiast fan base, but it's actually become a lot more popular line for just about anyone to consider, which I think overall is a good thing. Now, over the last year, I haven't checked out any OnePlus devices, frankly, because I've looked at so many phones that I didn't really have the time, and it didn't really seem to me that OnePlus was really improving the formula all that much over the experience that I had with the OnePlus 7 Pro or the OnePlus 8, which were the last OnePlus phones that I used. But I happened to pick up the OnePlus 9 on a really steep discount, and I wanted to check it out to see if I was missing an experience that I didn't have. And after the last couple weeks, I've been very impressed. Let's talk about it. This is InnoIso, and this is a quick review of the OnePlus 9. Right off the bat, I actually really enjoyed the design of the OnePlus 9. Sure, I would have preferred a less fingerprinty back with a matte glass panel, but otherwise, what I really appreciate about the OnePlus 9's design is the ergonomics. This is not a small phone by any rights, but it's also not that large, and it's relatively comfortable to hold in one hand just because of the nice, gentle, subtle curve across the entire back of the device. The sidewalls don't offer a whole lot of grip to hold on to, but that's okay just because so much of my hand is coming in contact with the device and holding it with a lot of friction. This is a big deal for me. Now, outside of that, the design is relatively muted. There's not a lot going on, which is in many ways a good thing. It's very much a generic phone with a relatively simple, small camera bump and not a lot of decoration, which I'm fine with. Turn the phone around and you've got what looks like a standard Android experience with a dedicated cutout, but otherwise a relatively edge-to-edge display that doesn't spill over the sides in a curved glass panel. The display of the phone is a flat 2400 by 1080p panel that refreshes at 120 Hz. Frankly, honestly, I had to actually look that up. I had expected it to be a 90 Hz panel because a lot of mid-range phones refresh at 90 Hz, but honestly, I don't really tell the difference all that much. Whether it was 90 Hz or 120 Hz, it still feels very, very smooth and a great experience to me. It was able to get perfectly bright for outdoor viewing, and it's large enough to watch YouTube videos on. And the hole punch, while not the best solution, is really off to the side, so I don't have a lot of problems with watching the display and getting distracted by it. In terms of performance, unsurprisingly, the OnePlus 9 is incredibly fast and incredibly capable. The one-year-old Snapdragon 888 is still very, very fast and capable even today, and will likely be so for a lot of years. Now, the battery life was a little bit of a misstep for me. I was typically getting between 4 and 5 hours of screen on time, which is quite a bit less than what I'd expect out of a more modern flagship. It got me through most days, but if I was heavily watching YouTube or anything like that, it really would fall short. That's a little bit of a disappointment, but it's not enough to break the phone for me. Where OnePlus has come under a lot of fire One place where OnePlus has come under fire for recent years is in the software experience, because the experience has been closer and closer to Oppo, their sister company. Now, frankly, I've never really had a big problem with the software design of Chinese manufacturers, but I will say that it does take some getting used to if you're used to the older, more stock iterations of OnePlus's UI. One problem that I had with the UI is you can't actually get rid of the Google feed to the left of your home screens, which was just such a weird feature. I understand if you are actually a fan of the Google feed, but frequently I'm just inundated with a bunch of news that I'm not really too interested in, and so instead I would have just preferred hiding it altogether. Of course, I could use a launcher to solve that problem, but I would prefer just having that stock. One small gripe that I have with watching videos in landscape mode is that despite using both the bottom speaker and the earpiece as kind of a stereo speaker setup, the earpiece doesn't actually get loud enough to have a good experience. Instead, you've got a very, very quiet speaker on the left or one side and a very relatively loud speaker on the right. This doesn't ruin the experience, it's just significantly worse than a lot of other phones on the market. Now, despite the performance overall being pretty good with this device, with the Snapdragon 888, unfortunately I got a lot more app hangs and freezes than I do on most other devices, and I'm not exactly sure where they were coming from. Frequently I would reload a page that had actually fallen out of RAM, and unfortunately it would just freeze at the opening screen with YouTube or any app like that. This was frustrating and not something I'd expect out of OnePlus. One common criticism of OnePlus devices is that they don't have as good cameras as most other flagships on the market, like Samsung Galaxy devices or the Google Pixel 6 line or even the iPhone 13 series. But frankly, I have never gotten too hung up with this. The OnePlus 9 has a perfectly respectable pair of cameras, one being a standard lens and one being wide angle, and both take relatively good photos. In most cases, unless you specifically want the highest fidelity photos or really to compare side by side with any of those flagships, you're going to get great shots out of this. And for the most part, if you're just capturing memories of your life, this will be a good solution. One way that I look at the OnePlus 9 today is it's kind of like a Pixel 5a or Pixel 6 with a more premium design, more flagshipy design. And that's a good thing. It means for a relatively accessible price, you're getting a great experience, especially if you go refurb. Now, I will say that this doesn't offer the same sort of experience as a Pixel. There's going to be some additional features that you get with Pixel devices, but I would say that generally you're going to get a faster experience with OnePlus over the Pixel line. If I wasn't a tech reviewer and I didn't have access to a whole bunch of different phones, frankly, the OnePlus 9 would be a great solution for under $500. And so if you are familiar with OnePlus, you like the brand, you like the experience, then this is actually a very, very good solution if you're on a budget. The problem that OnePlus faces is, despite them slowly creeping into the public eye, they're not quite well known among most people. That has been helped slightly by them being available in carrier stores, and so I've seen more and more OnePluses in the market, just random people, which is great. But if you have someone that's out there looking for a great flagship style phone for a reasonable price point, the OnePlus 9 still stands up really well today. It's just, the question is, will they be familiar enough with the brand to trust you on that? Hopefully you can convince them. Thank you for watching InnoIso. I hope you liked this quick review of the OnePlus 9. If you did, be sure to let me know down in the comments and get subscribed because we've got more quick videos like this and bigger, massive reviews coming up very soon. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.